Welcome to Bunkertown. On this week's show, we'll discuss the historic RBC Canadian Open. We then welcome from the Fire Pit Collective, Matt Ginella, to the show to discuss the new LIV Golf merger and what it means for the PGA Tour. Finally, we'll close things off by previewing the US Open at LA Country Club, as well as answering some fan questions and giving our bogeyed plays of the week. I'm joined this week by Ian, Nolan, and Reed.
Oh boy, look where he's hit it. This is serious.
This is hard to watch.
You know, building sandcastles in the sand.
What happens is you have this sense of embarrassment.
That's a shank. He decided to re-tee. That's a shank. Oh, man.
But I'm surprised he mishit it that badly. Wow.
All right, fellas, this was a special week for me and Stark out in Toronto, having the RBC Canadian Open nearby at Oakdale Country Club. And I think it's safe to say it did not disappoint. After setting the course record on Saturday and going from 120th all the way to first, Nick Taylor went to a playoff with Tommy Fleetwood, and it took until the fourth playoff hole, we had to see that 18th hole forever. Taylor was 72 feet for eagle and the win, and he did this.
Swing of the putter, comes up with some speed, now up the rise. For the eagle, for the win, to the cup, to the cup, yes! The drought is over! The drought is over! Nick Taylor with the eagle, the 2023 RBC Canadian Open champion! History!
That was technically my colleague, Mark Zecchino, on PGA Tour Radio with the incredible call, just an all-time call there. But Stark, what do you think about it?
Man, chills listening to that, honestly. And as a Canadian, you know, we have this complex of being, you know, we can compete or we can battle or we can be in the mix with the Americans and the rest of the people around the world in sports in general. I mean, yeah, we tend to be really good at hockey, but you know, we don't have many baseball players or basketball players or football players, and for years we had sometimes just one or maybe two players on the PGA Tour, and that's kind of what I grew up watching. And Mike Weir was really the only guy, and then Graham Dillette came along, but never became a superstar. So yesterday, Sunday, watching Nick Taylor, and obviously he started really coming around on Saturday too, and watching him be in the mix in Toronto at the Canadian Open, knowing that there was this long drought of a Canadian not winning this event, for him to be even competing near the end was amazing to see. And in a playoff, it goes on, and he misses a chance to win. Fleetwood misses a few chances to win. But never did I think it was going to end with a dramatic 72-foot putt that would just hit that pin and drop in, and the entire 18th hole, and really, I'll say, all of Canada watching or listening would lose their shit. I never thought it would be like that. And, you know, afterwards kind of reflecting and thinking, and what are some of the great Canadian moments in sports since I've been alive, this is now on the list. It's right up there to see it happen, to see a Canadian do something so special and something that we've been talking about happening every year at this event. And will it be the year a Canadian wins it? Can they do it? Can they do it? And to be able to show my kids that a Canadian golfer can go on and win this, and how many Canadians went out golfing the next day because they saw Nick Taylor did this, it's going to change Canadian golf for the next 20 plus years. And I was so happy to see it, happy for Nick Taylor, and happy for all the Canadian guys.
You know, I didn't have the Canadian tie to it, but Dave Merkel, who was caddying for Nick Taylor, I actually spent a lot of time with Merkel when he was on the bag for a golfer named Mike Gligic. Him and I were both caddying on the web.com/Corn Ferry Tour at the time. Both got our PGA Tour card, but through caddying at the same time. And you watch that replay. I don't have the Canadian ties, but I have a Dave Merkel tie. And you watch that replay, and he just gets absolutely jacked, pumped when after it goes in and goes over, and like hops up and down like a rabbit and jumps on Nick Taylor. Dude, watching that replay, I've watched it probably 15 times. You don't see that every week. You see that a couple times a year in dramatic fashion like that. And when it hits, and for it to hit how it did with a Canadian in Canada, it's about as good as it gets. It's like an Australian coming down the stretches in the Australian Open, and they had a drought like that. I'm sure they'd be the same way.
It's golf's equivalent to a walk-off home run, a buzzer beater, or an overtime goal. It's the only time that this happens. And for it to be the Canadian on Canadian soil makes it even better. If he had a won by 5 strokes and, 3-putted 18 because he could, would it be as dramatic? Would people be as excited? I mean, they'd be happy a Canadian won, but for it to end that way just puts it up there with Crosby's golden goal or Joe Carter's walk-off World Series home run, Donovan Bailey in the 100 meters. These are the Canadian things that we hang on and love to be able to say that a Canadian did these things. And for Nick Taylor to do that was awesome.
For it to end like that, I think it puts the entire world of golf in acknowledgement of this tournament and of what Nick Taylor did. Like you're kind of alluding to, Stark, Canada kind of gets a rap of being the United States little brother almost in a lot of these major sports, they're right above us, and we dominate a lot of the other sports compared to Canada. So I feel like I can't have a Canadian perspective. You guys are going to be super happy no matter what once that drought is diminished. But the way it ended, it's cemented in golf lore forever. So that's huge. As an American, that was crazy to watch. I'm super excited for all of Canada that you guys were able to have that championship. I can only imagine if American hadn't won the US Open for 50 plus years and what that would feel like. You would just be flying that flag for weeks after that event. And I mean, it'd be your entire life. You've never seen a Canadian win the Canadian Open. And that's just crazy to think of. There's a lot of great Canadian golfers. And like you're saying, I hope this makes a lot more great Canadian golfers. But I would almost feel this disdain for other countries whenever the US Open rolled around. If an American hadn't won in that long, I would just be all Team America that week for sure. So you guys are way nicer than I didn't feel like any Canadians were like, man, I hate those dang Americans or those Australian, those Brits. It seemed like even the players, obviously there was the Canadian players pulling for Taylor, and then there's a couple, there's Rose and Hatton were, hanging around watching Fleetwood play, and you could tell even the Rose and Hatton and even Fleetwood, they just got to tip their cap. That was just, it felt like it was meant to be. Speaking of meant to be, did you guys see the toonie that was placed in the bottom of the 18th hole cup by the grounds crew? That was another just a little crazy nugget that really brought the whole story together.
And the other thing too is, great, yeah, you win the Canadian Open, but this is now the 4th Canadian to win this year on the PGA Tour, most ever. They're flying right now. They're playing great. They're more and more Canadians playing in all the majors now, qualifying for it. We're gonna have more even at the Masters next year. We got the President's Cup in Montreal. Captain Mike Weir too. How many Canadians are going to make that team now? So everything's moving in the right direction. Momentum's moving for Canadian golf. So it's good to see.
Yeah, imagine I told you 5 years ago 4 Canadians would win and one of them wouldn't be Hadwin.
Nick Taylor played at University of Washington when I was growing up in Seattle. It was basically my whole high school years were his college years. Once I went into college, he had just graduated. So I watched him play and become, I believe, the number 1 amateur in the world at one point, right? I watched him at regionals several times, and he was always good, man. He was just a good ball striker, so it's fine. I know he's had some success on the PGA Tour in the past. This one probably, my guess, is the biggest one to him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he said in one of his press conferences that it's the 4 majors and then this. So I don't know if that includes the Players' Championship. I'm assuming not, but pretty wild. And like you guys said, it's so much crazier how he won with the 72 or 74 footer at the end. Had he 2-putted and Fleetwood just misses his 12-footer and Taylor wins, it's such a different story. And the whole world's probably not retweeting and sharing the video 100 times. Perfect ending. I think it was looking awful for the Canadian Open. For the last few years, they've been screwed over by different golf news, by COVID. And for this to happen, it was the perfect situation.
It almost changed the narrative going into the week. Everyone was kind of down. Like, is this happening again at the Canadian Open? All the merger of LIV, PGA Tour, whatever's going on there comes out right in their backyard. So some good news coming along. We had the 14th hole, the rink. I went down on Friday, took my boys, watched the golf right there. It was awesome. We were banging on the boards. We were able to see a few Canadians come by. They're singing the anthem every time a Canadian comes. And Nick Taylor with the lead gets to the 14th hole. He listens to the entire anthem. My heart's pumping watching on TV. His heart must be pumping. And he hits a dart on 14 to get it on the green and just, let's get a par and get out of this hole. He then goes on to do the TV broadcast walk and chat as well, which was crazy to have the leader doing that. Not only the leader, but the leader of a national event, an open, and he's Canadian playing in it. I thought that was bizarre too. So there was so much going on from Monday to Sunday on that last putt that it almost brought the whole event up. I think it helped the PGA Tour. It brought everything together. I mean, you couldn't be more happy for a guy like that to win in this event.
And we can't not talk about the other Canadian who had a very strong showing this week. Corey Connors was looking like the early, hero for you Canadians. I thought for sure he was going to close it out even. He was, 8 under after the first 2 rounds, and he was right up there, maybe in second place. And what happened over the weekend for Mr. Connors? He started kind of falling off the broadcast a little. I was kind of sitting there watching Sunday early and Saturday and being like, how are they not showing Connors right now? This is the Canadian Open. And turned out he wasn't playing that great. So I'm not really sure what happened with his game. He shot even par over the weekend, 2 under, then 2 over on Sunday. So great for Nick Taylor to pull it out for you guys, but it felt a little bleak when Connors was shying away from the moment.
I would have bet money Saturday morning before they teed off. I'm like, it's going to be Connors and Rory McIlroy in the final group on Sunday. What a great final group. We're either going to get a Canadian winning or we're going to get Rory winning the Canadian Open 3 times in a row. And those guys just fell off the map, just like you said, Nolan. I mean, Rory, again, just can't close, was struggling, couldn't find the hole. I mean, losing on Saturday and Sunday, losing ground to Mark Hubbard, who he was playing with both days, couldn't even beat him. Seemed like a disappointment, especially after the week with everything going on with Rory. Thought maybe this would be the thing he could hang his hat on and say he did a great job. Was also shocked, you mentioned having some of the European guys sticking around for Tommy Fleetwood. Rory wasn't those guys. He was on a bird getting out of there, going to the U.S. Open. So just a strange week for Rory. Not sure what's going on with him. Don't know if he's even going to be a contender again this week at the U.S. Open. Is it his game? Is it in his head? But Rory seems to be off a little bit as well.
He declined a lot of the media this week too.
Post round too, yeah.
Obviously, it's an option, right, to be able to speak. It's not like Marshawn Lynch, I'm just here so I don't get fined kind of thing, but
throw some Skittles.
Something's going on with Rory, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing good. He's just not Rory McIlroy greatness. He was probably the biggest name up there in the top 10 heading into the weekend, into Sunday even, 2 shots back of CT Pan, and he just slid away. And again, didn't see much of him on the broadcast either, and it's a sad sight almost, I guess.
Is he going to come back to the Canadian Open next year? I'm thinking he doesn't. I think this is it. I think he only came back for the 3-peat.
Yeah, especially if the schedule's changing around and everything. And, obviously they change courses every year. But speaking of this course, Oakdale, I said I was there. The rough was thick, which is good for these guys because they know they're going to the U.S. Open. The front 9 seemed really gettable. Some guys were able to shoot in low 30s there. Back 9 was a mix of 2 different 9s. If you weren't aware of that, they have 27 holes on the property. So they kind of mixed 2 9s together to get it. Reed, I want to get your thoughts on this as a professional golfer. The 18th hole, guys are hitting 5-iron some days. Then maybe they're hitting a metalwood into it. We saw what Tommy Fleetwood did on the 72nd hole. All he had to do is, he birdied, but most guys were birdieing anyway. He gets himself in trouble on the layup. Is it a real downer when the last hole of the event is kind of rinky-dink and you don't know how to play it like that? Or are you kind of like, hey, it's a birdie hole, let's go get it, maybe make eagle?
There's two sides to it. It brings more excitement to the finish because you don't really know what's going to happen. There's a possibility for a really low score. There's a possibility for a high score. You can get in trouble. It's kind of quirky. But I don't know. I prefer just a better finishing hole that's just flat out hard. You know what I mean? It's demands 2 good golf shots or 3 good golf shots or whatever it is, par 4 or 5, whatever. I personally don't like giving someone opportunity to make an easy 3, maybe a long par 5 where you can make 3 if you hit a real good golf shot in or something. It's kind of more on what I like. Let's talk about like 18 at TPC Sawgrass. Still birdieable. Just thought he got to hit 2 good golf shots, right? So I kind of like that style of finishing hole a little more. I don't think it really changes things, although I will say it gives options to those who are maybe 2 back that can make 3 on the final hole. You might be bringing 6 into play in some occurrences, but at least options there. But like I said, I've always preferred a little tougher finish. Like I said, as TPC Sawgrass or even Bay Hill, tough second shot in there, still birdieable again.
Let's stay on 18 just for a second because I have a lot to digest on it. So Tommy Fleetwood blew it on the last hole. He did not play it well, got himself in some trouble, and ended up parring it. So be it. Then Nick Taylor, okay, he comes. We know what he's got to do to get into either win it or get into the playoff, and made a great putt, beautiful view coming down the fairway of it, just the camera angle of it. But he hits it into the rough, and he gets to his ball, and the telecast is saying, you know what? He's going to get a drop here. His feet are going to be on the drain. He's going to get a drop. Maybe he'll even be able to putt it. But when he gets up to the ball, he doesn't even question it, doesn't even ask for a ruling. His caddy says, are you okay? Is your feet on? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm going to play it. Do you think maybe he should have thought about trying to get a drop or at least asking for some help? Or do you think he was just so dialed in and so focused on making the up and down to get into the playoff that he was like, this is my lie, I got to play it?
If you draw a good lie and you're in some rough and you're standing on a sprinkler or whatever it may be in any occurrence, sometimes it really doesn't matter that you're standing on it because it doesn't really change a whole lot. If I got a good lie, I'm not taking a drop. Unless it's just, creating a stance or a swing, whatever, that's not feasible. But if it's anywhere near normal and I've got a good lie, I'm usually leaving it because dropping a golf ball, you tend to just get so much more shit lies than when it rolls, you know what I mean? Because you're dropping it down, all the weight's going down into the rough or down into the grass. But I don't know. I feel like he would have thought about everything. Maybe he walked up and something showed him that he didn't need to take a drop. I'm sure he's seen that a lot, and he's as experienced as almost anyone, right? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what he had to say about that.
I enjoyed the 18th hole, to be honest. I like a finishing hole where you can make eagle because it was almost a forced layup off the tee. You did have, a longer shot if you wanted to go for it. But yeah, I am with Reed. I do enjoy a nice hard finishing par 4. Like, I kind of like one or the other. Either I want to see this 18th hole be a chance for someone to make something crazy happen like an eagle, or the flip side of it, and you got to just grind out a par to win it, or you could easily make double. If we look back at Taylor, super clutch coming down the stretch. He bogeys 16, right? And then just ice in the veins to make birdies on 17 and 18. Just hats off to the guy. He played tough in the playoff. He did exactly what he needed to do. And that's how I'm going to leave it for this tournament.
I got one last parting thought here from the Canadian Open. Nick Taylor on Thursday was the only player in the field to double bogey or worse the 18th hole. Then on Sunday, he was one of just 3 players to make eagle. He ended up playing the hole an absurd 7 times. So, you know what? If there's one thing we're going to get out of this, we don't have to see the 18th hole again for 2 more years till it's back in 2026. All right, so some of the biggest news we've had in recent years is the announcement of a LIV Golf PGA Tour merger. Unfortunately, we recorded the show last week a few hours before the news came out, but luckily this week we have one of the biggest names in golf media, formerly of Golf Channel, Golf Digest, and Sports Illustrated. Now he's with the Fire Pit Collective. They've been at the forefront of golf news. I mean, if you're on golf Twitter, you'll see the name. He's doing some amazing things. Welcome to the show, Matt Ginella.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
If you're on golf Twitter, we've seen Alan Shipnuck all over it. And you guys were basically at the forefront of when this LIV Golf news broke, or the PIF, or all these different Saudi funds getting into it. So what was your gut reaction after you saw the news broke?
Alan really has been the lead writer, reporter, obviously the Phil book, and then he hit send on last Sunday on what is the second book, The Fight for the Soul of the Game. And we've been having a lot of conversations throughout his reporting as to what's been happening, amongst the leadership, the top players, the bottom half of the players, the sponsors. I will say that, and I think it was pretty obvious that the models, the LIV model was not sustainable if you actually cared about some sort of profit. That was not, that seemed to, that was going to take some time to actually become, if they really cared about a viable business model, then that was going to take time. If they were just in it to disrupt and to steal some players and create a breakaway league and rattle the cage of what had kind of been in place for several decades, then the mission was getting accomplished. You saw the swell of interest as it related to crowds in Australia, Tulsa. And I was saying at the time, if they just went where the tour wasn't, if they just started making a plan to get the players they got in places that the tour wasn't, they had, you could say they had momentum. Were they getting ratings on the traditional distribution models? No. But I think it was enough to catch the tour's attention. Certainly the players they had, what they were doing, and the crowds they were getting. Meanwhile, the PGA Tour, we knew that was not sustainable. That sponsors were not happy. Sponsors weren't going to be ponying up the necessary millions of dollars to try to become elevated events with a diluted field. So pay $8 million more, but you're only going to get this collection of players. Meanwhile, what we were seeing at the majors, both the Masters and the PGA, was, Brooks and Phil finishing second, Brooks winning. This was not going the way they kind of hoped that would go. We know there was impending, court cases in which maybe the PGA Tour was winning the battles, but maybe they weren't going to win the war. People were being deposed. High-ranking officials in the world of golf were being deposed. Were they in on their phones, their emails? Were they finding out that, Monahan never met with LIV and or the Saudis right from the very beginning? So where was all this going to go? I think the biggest shock was that it happened when it happened, and sort of the timing between the 4 major season leading into a Ryder Cup. It wasn't at the end of a season. I think that was the biggest shock to me, and I think to anybody involved, anybody who's covering, is that it happened when it did and how it did. And the fact that it doesn't feel like, I think they almost started more questions than they answered. That's, as it's been pointed out by many people, what in the actual literal fuck is going on here in professional golf?
Yeah, and it seemed like not that it was a rush job or that they weren't prepared, but there was, I mean, years down the road, there's going to be, obviously talking about books, there's going to be books on this. And why did it come out just this random day? Why now? Why come out when you don't have the entire plan laid out for what it's going to look like in the future for professional golf? So that was kind of the confusing part for me. And I think there's a lot more things to come out. And if it actually does happen and it goes through and we do have this new looking league, but I wanted to ask you from the players' perspective, you know, who are the ones that are really winners in this? Is it the LIV players who can now say we were right all along and now look, we're going to be able to get back on the PGA Tour? Is it a bad look for the players that stayed on the PGA Tour? What are your thoughts on who really the winners and losers are in this overall picture?
I mean, again, I think we're going to have to a snap judgment and a quick reaction to winners, losers, you know, obviously. And again, even at the time, Phil was right? The tour was, you know, exploiting their members to the tune of some, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars that they had, you know, in reserve. Okay, you can argue they needed to have that kind of stuff in reserve for things like a global pandemic. I guess that's what everybody's prepared for, a global pandemic. Really? I don't know. So, I mean, okay, they had a big chunk of money. They're building a brand new facility in Ponte Vedra, you know, and we were told players didn't even sign off on that. The tour was in control over their media partners. They were like the tour had, you know, that was my biggest problem is there was no, you know, I'm not rooting for Saudi Arabia or, you know, or Greg Norman or Phil Mickelson for that matter, but I'm also not rooting for the tour. So for me, I didn't really have anybody I was actually rooting for in this, you know, in this battle for the fight for the soul of the game. It was kind of like, all right, everybody's about to get really rich. This all of a sudden got really obnoxious to me. Everybody's calling each other names. Like I've, over the course of the last several months, been just detaching myself from the whole professional game. It's like, hey guys, fucking get in a room, figure this out, get organized, create something that's actually worth following and rooting for. Until then, I'm in on the majors. I'll definitely watch the Ryder Cup. You know, I might watch Sunday, the last 4 holes, but I'm not investing like Tuesday through Sunday on this, you know, half-assed, like bullshit product that you're putting out, pretending like this is something we all have been waiting for.
Matt, I want to ask you, kind of feeding off that. I mean, you see sports, and I know I brought up soccer, at least to these guys before. You see, you know, sports like soccer that are so worldwide, or, you know, baseball, which is fairly worldwide, and there's leagues of golf all over the world, but there's not big leagues of golf all over the world. Why can't we figure out a way to make it worldwide and everyone works together? And the best players get to go to all the best tournaments and have all the best connections to, you know, go to the biggest stages and, you know, all of that. Why? So I tend to think that this is going to grow into and mold to kind of a more fluid mold between the tours, if you will, down the road. And I think there is some figuring out to do, but I just see I see soccer and see how, you know, much that they play against different leagues and they have tournaments that, you know, the leagues come together and whatnot. And that's kind of what I'm envisioning.
That would be my hope, is that you have January through July or August, you know, January through sort of a chunk of time. Here's the PGA Tour. And then you have the back end of the year that becomes, you know, the European Tour or the LIV Tour or whatever it is, that how this all shakes out. Something that is like, you know, and guys can play in both. Guys can play in one. You can get invited to play on a team. You know, you can be involved in a simultaneous team. When I said this several years ago, when Zurich is a smaller event, and they needed to differentiate themselves from the week in and week out stuff, they went to a 2-man team event. That was a great idea. It gave us something different and something unique. And it was like, oh, cool. Oh, Xander and Cantlay like to play against it. Okay, cool. What if you took 5 of the smaller events and you had a simultaneous team event happening within the season in which, make that 2 guys on a team or 4 guys on a team and you're playing in twosomes and they're matching up against and best ball of the twosome, or you count your own score. So there's an individual event while you're having a team event, and come up with something cool and innovative. Like if they don't figure this out this time, if this isn't an opportunity, Reed, to your point, to stop down, to reorganize, to reconfigure, to make the best product possible, if they want to have a 9 to 10 month season, you better create something that is compelling for 9 to 10 months, not just this 72 holes, cut after 36, individual event in which one guy wins and everybody else loses. Week in and week out and week in and week out.
Yeah, I'm interested too on now, obviously there's going to be an influx of money into the sport and how it's going to shake out over the years. We know Reed here, he's battling it out, trying to Monday qualify on the Corn Ferry Tour. And how is the smaller, the feeder system, is money going to start getting pumped into there? Is the PGA Tour now going to be on par or trying to catch some of the 4 major sports in North America? Hockey, baseball, basketball, and obviously the NFL is king. But now with this more money in here and more money in the sport, are people going to start making decisions? Maybe I'll put my son in golf lessons or put him on a junior tour as opposed to playing high school football or high school baseball because there's going to be more eyes and more money on it. Do you think that we're going to see more people playing the sport in the end because there's going to be more money and more interest?
That started happening, 15 years ago. Don't look now, but the actual game that we play, that we go out and enjoy, has never been better. That's kind of the irony of all of this, is that we're talking about the 0.002% of the people who play this sport, and they are the people who don't pay to play. Yet it's this elite level. So we are all going fucking crazy. This mass, 98% of the media is focused on this, when 98% of the people, it doesn't even really impact who play the game. It's like this really screwed up ratio of like attention and what really matters. And I think that, Stark, that's been happening. Athletes are playing golf. People are making more, we have a better sport. What Tiger did was brought a tsunami of interest to the game in the mid 90s, and the game wasn't ready for it. We said, no, wear a collared shirt. You have to wear pants, no music, double diamond of architecture. There was no short courses. There was no Topgolf, no PGA Junior League, no youth on course, no first tee until 23, 24 years ago. It was like we brought everybody to the top of this slope and you put them on double diamonds and they fell their way down at the bottom of the hill. You said, wasn't that fun? You want to get back? Pay us another $350. You can go to the top and break more bones. That was the game of golf in the mid 90s. So what's happened since then is everybody said, oh, fuck, we got to make this more accessible, more affordable, less time and more fun. This is people's recreational time. You're not going to tell them what to wear, what to do, or how to do it. That's called a private club. And if you want to pay whatever you pay to get into that private club, you play by their rules. But everywhere else, municipalities, and we've seen this resurrection of sort of the municipal aspect of the game and hoodies and hats and music and do whatever the hell you want and have fun. What a concept. It is a fucking game. That's been happening. And that to me is what I'm focused on. Like, get in a room, all you rich guys who are making a bunch of money playing the game. Great. Good for you. Get what the market bears. Sort this out. Make it make sense now, right now. Like, now is the time. You've got money. You've got history. You've got all the bells and whistles. You've got a global game. Get in a room and figure it out. World rankings, majors, European Tour, the Ryder Cup should be the best of the country. Like just fucking make it sense. Make it make sense. Let's sniff everything up with the sensibility factor. And if it doesn't, try again.
It should all mold seamlessly. And right now it doesn't mold at all.
Oh, it's going backward. I mean, this is just, it's like again, all you have to look like, again, I think the shit was going to hit the fan. What would explain what just transpired? How can you possibly explain very smart people, Ed Hurley and Jimmy Dunn, getting into a room with not a great person, the leader of this PIF fund and the Saudi Arabians, and say, all right, let's everybody put the guns down and we got to sort this out. What would do that in the middle of this season? Why would they do that? Something is going to come out that explains this. It was either that the tour was going to lose the big battle, or that all these big names were going to get deposed and we're going to get into their emails and text messages and find out that they were all conspiring against this breakaway league, in which the commissioner works for the players. So if he's not bringing them a deal that actually presents them a possibility of making more money, is that good? Is that right? So something's wrong here, and they're trying to fix it, and they better fix it. Like this is embarrassing. The way this is all transpiring. I think if I'm Rory, I'm like, what is going on here? And I can only imagine how many agents have thrown clickers and phones and broken TV. Like, are you shitting me? They're either like, we took the money and now we can come back, or we didn't take the money and now how are you going to pay me back? Like, these are a bunch of really rich people really pissed off about how rich they can or can't be. Sort it out, guys. Be big boys and girls. In the meantime, I'm going to play golf.
Yeah.
You said it's spot on. Like, it seems so simple for them to resolve this or figure out something. And as of now, it seems like no one actually knows even what's going on. Like, is this PIF buying the PGA Tour? Are they just investing a little bit into the PGA Tour? Is it even going to happen? Like, have you gotten any more clarity from when it was announced to now, or has it just gotten way more confusing?
Oh, I think it's gotten way more confusing. And oh, by the way, we have a U.S. Open, and we have the USGA being like, well, please talk about the U.S. Open. Please don't ask players about, next question, and it has to be about like, what? I mean, the steamy turd they just left on the front doorstep of the U.S. Open is amazing. Like, what is happening?
They just stepped in dog shit.
I mean, the USG opened the door and we're like, what? Who just left this on our front door?
Yeah, I mean, the Canadian Open definitely found a way to burn through that stinky turd. I think they had a great tournament.
Yeah, well, it took a 72-foot putt on the fourth playoff hole. Other than that, yeah, with the Canadian winning for the first time in 69 years.
Lifelong drought, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see on Sunday. Maybe that'll happen.
Yeah, same thing again this week.
We'll see what happens. I mean, yeah, Zach alluded to it. Is this going to happen at all? There's so many hurdles that still has to be jumped through. I mean, yeah, Matt, you're expressing definitely this confusion and this. We're all in the dark on this. It was, 4 or 5 guys in a room determining the future of golf. And I'm with you. I just want to be able to still go to my course to get a tee time. Right now, it's already kind of hard to do that. But does this affect us that are not in the 90, that are not in the 1% of the 1%? I'm not entirely sure. I hope whatever comes out is a positive impact on us and the viewership, and seeing like the Korn Ferry Tour grow or the LPGA grow. Usually when money's pumped into something, good things happen. But yeah, they could easily fumble the bag. They're not giving me the confidence that I would like to see from the leaders of basically golf in the entire world right now.
Is this a chance for the other players to finally unionize and protect themselves so something like this doesn't happen, 10 years from now? Like, there's no more Tiger Woods. Tiger's done now.
Hey, you watch yourself.
And Phil's 52. I love Tiger. I mean, I thank you, Tiger, for all that you've done for the game and the industry. And I'm someone who's definitely greatly benefited from the money he's brought in. And you can't pay him enough. There is no amount. Like, you've watched Air, right? What did Michael Jordan do for Nike? There is no amount that he's ever going to recoup for the difference he made in that brand, in that company. There's nothing there's no monetary value that's going to be fair to Tiger to say this way, nor was there ever to, Arnold Palmer, to the day he died, was like the third biggest earner in the history, of golf, like every year in golf. Like it was like Tiger, Phil, and Arnold Palmer. And, Arnold hadn't competed for like 50 years. So, those guys are transcendent, and they put the game on the map, and we're going to feel the effects of Tiger for the foreseeable future, but he's not really competing anymore. And whatever the simulator thing is going to be, I wouldn't, that's probably going to get great ratings on a Monday night for whatever that is. I wish it nothing but the best. That's yet another version of it. But at the end of the day, they need to get in a room and take this opportunity to address any and all issues and synchronize a plan and get organized fast, because right now this is absolutely ludicrous, an embarrassment, a dumpster fire, a shit show, a seismic, like, fucking heap of what in the fuck?
Is there anything like you want to happen? Like you were alluding to it earlier, like the team event or team aspect of it seems like a really cool idea. F1 does it really well. Is there a way that the golfing world could figure it out? I hope they do. When you're looking at the return of these LIV players to the PGA Tour, I want to see them on the PGA Tour because I want to see the best of the best competing every week. How does that happen? In my mind, I think they should be, fined partial of what they were given to go to LIV, and that money goes to some of the higher end players that stayed loyal and whatnot, like the Rory McIlroys of the world and Colin Morikawa's. Maybe that helps just like ease the tension a little, but those are some of the things that might work.
I think that was even already discussed. Like, if I'm Jimmy Dunn and Ed Hurley, and I'm getting in that room with a guy who has endless amounts of money, and I know Jimmy Dunn and Rory are close. I mean, I know, these guys, these guys are a big part of golf. So I don't think there was any chance that the minute that whatever got done, whatever agreement was made, there wasn't don't worry, we'll take care of you, Rory. We'll take care of you, Tiger. We'll take care of you, Hideki. We'll take care. Like, you got it. You better take care of those guys. And I think they're going to. And so, there's already PIP funds in which they've been funneling money. They do have this other tour venture. I mean, that's kind of like, I think at some point someone probably told those guys, hey guys, we had to do this, or we could have potentially lost everything. So we've got a future. We've got money. We've got to get in a room and figure this out. But for me, going back to the beginning when this all started breaking, my hope was that there was actually a disruption. And I think that was sort of where, if Phil and I agreed on something, it was like the tour needed to be disrupted. Pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. They were getting very hoggy with all their media control, all their tentacles, and all their power.
And it seemed like they weren't prepared, right? They weren't prepared when LIV showed up. And now there's rumors that they were approached earlier. And I guess that kind of leads to me to asking you about Jay Monahan, commissioner of the PGA, or is he going to be the CEO or whatever his title is now going to be? Is he a guy that's going to stick around? We heard that they're right here in Toronto. There was the players only meeting, and there was some very upset players and players calling for him to be ousted. And if there is a way the players can unite and get together, can they select their own commissioner? Can they help with can the top guys that maybe help pick who's going to run the league? And that's going to be the person that's going to take them into the future. What's your thoughts on Jay and how he handled this and if he's going to be around for the foreseeable future?
I mean, I think we're all surprised that he's still there, right? I mean, this whole thing has been, if that's the way I had done my job and I was in a players only meeting and, quote, 90% of the people were essentially asking for, me to be gone. I mean, I mean, come on, this is like, now I've been told by inside sources, Jay is in charge. And if we find out that, and more details come out and it was actually that this is the way it's going to go down, this is the money, but this is the control, and we find out that Jay saved the day, that'll be just as shocking as the fact that they've decided to create some sort of, merger, quote, merger, whatever that means. But I mean, come on. I mean, this is, something's got to give here. Greg Norman, I'm told, is probably not going to be a part of the future. Jay Monahan, like, I don't know. I don't know how you piss off that many people and still stay in that place. But hey, he's a really nice guy. I don't have any personal beef with him. It just seems like it's time, again, it's time now, right now, to figure this out and get all the ducks in a row and present the world, because it is a global game, some organized look at what we call professional golf. And I think you got to have an elite top slice, and then you have another, variation of that. And then that money should and could continue to trickle down and support the Korn Ferry Tour guys who grind and are going backwards at $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Just to, these guys that shoot 65 on any given, just create a scenario in which they make a living. Like, how about just make a decent living instead of going back $100,000? They make $100,000 and are able to actually not go in debt. That's crazy. So, AAA ball, you make a salary, you get your expenses paid, you get your hotels paid, you get a food stipend, and you get a chance to continue to hone your craft and see if you got the goods to make it in the big leagues. And at some point you make a decision whether you want to keep going or not your bank account.
I can only attest to that as much as anyone here, Matt, because I'm chasing it right now as well. But I do have a question for you regarding the tours, and it's kind of on the outset, if you will. In my mindset, if you think about golf, I want to see the best in the world be able to play together in any given event, because everyone's letting them play in every event. And the way that it was recently, and you can say that the fields were still great in some of these PGA Tour events, but we know, and we've seen it proven now. Brooks almost winning at Augusta and now coming to win here. You weren't getting the best fields in the world. And I think at some point we will see that happen again, where everyone is together playing everything with no fucks given. And I think that there's something to be said about, at least they're trying to make an initiative to put something together. Who knows what it's going to be, but at least you can kind of see them wanting to merge things together is to have that big picture back. And it's nice, how long will it be? Who knows? But I just wanted to, that was kind of sitting with me and sitting on my mind. I know there's a lot of questions of what actually is going to happen, but the big picture positive is that we're going to get some of the bigger tournaments with, that aren't the majors, that all the big boys will be back together.
Yeah, what a concept, Reed. How about a world golf ranking that ranks the world of golf? How about a players championship that has the defending champion play in the players championship? If we sat down and made a list of things that just simply made sense, you'd be surprised at how many things are on that list that aren't actually in play in the world of professional golf right now. That is crazy. Like, how about the best players in the U.S. represent United States in the Ryder Cup?
I even feel that the Ryder Cup has taken almost, it's still hyped up and it's still awesome, but is it what it was in the mid 80s? Is it what it was in the early 90s?
No, of course, again, it takes a step back. If you don't have a captains having the option of simply picking or having access to the best players in the world on both sides, right? Ian Poulter, Lee Westwood, say whatever you want about these guys or whether you think they can. Well, at least they should have a chance of trying to play. Sergio Garcia, John Rahm, 3-0 last Ryder Cup. Like, let him have a crack at it. At the very least, otherwise, and if not, then let them be captains. But like, that's just the kind of stuff that just need like. Are we trying to manage a group of elementary school kids, or is this like professional golf? What is happening right now?
Matt, thank you for your time. But before we close it out, we're going to get to your podcast series. But I want to bring up one interesting topic. You mentioned it earlier that Alan Shipnuck, he had his book that was ready to come out, and he hit release just like a mere few hours before this news broke. We need the inside source. This has got to be one of the all-time bad breaks in humanity.
The funny thing about book public, talking about something that doesn't make a ton of sense, like the idea that you hit send on a Sunday and it's not out for 5 months. Like, I don't even know what, like, it's 2023, right? Like, I get it. I guess there's glue and paper and publishing. It just seems a little crazy to me that that's our current reality. We can't, a book can't have any, how do you make a book on sort of news and hit send and have a fun? Now, Alan was always going to be able to have a chance to continue to update one last chapter or two through the Open Championship. So let's say it's the book has 14 chapters, 12 of the chapters are locked. That still explains a lot as to how and why we are where we are, even to this day. I mean, at the end, he had said, and has said in many podcasts, that he had kind of saw that this needed to have, they were going to have to get in a room and sort this out at some point. That now he's continued to do more reporting and will do more reporting and continue to update that book up and through, through the summer, and Simon & Schuster's the publisher. And I think ultimately you're still going to have a book worth reading. I think that goes without saying. I just, we'll have to see, but I will tell you that, I've worked at SI and Digest and Golf Channel, and I'm not sure there's many reporters who can, go shoulder to shoulder with Alan, and then he has an incredible ability to actually turn it into something worth reading. So that combination of reporter and writer and doggedness and guts, balls to say the least, is who he is. And I've watched him do it for now, a better part of 25 to 30 years. It's going to be worth reading.
Maybe an all-time good break. I might have to take that back, because now he's gonna have one of the most updated LIV Golf books out there.
Better that it happened now than let's say in September, before when he's done and they can't change anything and something were to drop. So in a way, it actually did work in his favor, to be honest with you.
You learn something new about book publishing every day, and then but yeah. So for you though, you have a podcast. I've checked it out, Club Pro Crisis, and we just want to let our fans know what that's all about.
Well, Alan's been doing this book, and the world of professional golf is burning to the ground. Like, I've just been working. I said something stupid on a podcast last year. I probably have said 10 stupid things on this podcast, so I'll get a bunch of shit for this one. But that's what we do, right? We sit around, we have conversations. I was asked about what we were working on. We were working on a docuseries on the mid-level, professional golfers pushing on and losing 80 to 100,000 a year. It's called The Grind. We had done 15 episodes. We published 6 episodes to this point. And I was talking about that, and I said, it's something's really wonky where you have, sort of professional golfers who can shoot 66 on any given day, going backwards 80 to 100 grand. And you have club pros, PGA pros who can't break 80, who make 150 grand and work, 50-hour work weeks or something to that effect. So I was kind of 0 for 3 on that. Not many of them make 150 grand. Some of them can break 80 and, they work 80-hour work weeks and they're getting paid like, $18 an hour. So I took a ton of shit, and rightfully so, on Twitter after that clip that I said that it was a 50-second little clip. That clip got played on Twitter as a promo for the podcast about, what we were talking about. I'm sure you guys have all done. At some point you say something dumb on, and then it gets put out on Twitter and you take the backlash. Well, I was not aware of just how dire and desperate and what a crisis it is, certainly in the US, of trying to get quality people to run the game of golf at a professional level. I didn't realize that people were leaving the industry the way they are. I knew superintendents were in a state of crisis. I did not know that PGA pros and club pros, I didn't know PGM programs were closing at an alarming rate. I didn't read Shane Ryan's Club Pro Crisis article in Golf Digest in May of 2022 until after I said what I said. At that point, I had two options. It was like, ignore it or do something about it. And instead I did something about it. And I interviewed, now I've probably interviewed a better part of 12 to 14 different PGA pros, Butch Harmon, Seth Waugh, Susie Whaley, Shane Ryan, who wrote the article. We're about to drop part 5 of the podcast series on this Club Pro crisis. I've learned a lot in the process. I'm sharing what I've learned in the process. I've said sorry as many times, and in a way, doing this podcast series is my big apology to club. I love club pros. No one's benefited from club pros and their participation in how they manage the game of golf more than me. I've been around the industry since I was a kid. I jump around to, club after club, course after course, country after country. And I love the game as much as anybody. I wasn't trying to pick a fight with club pros. I've said sorry, and I'm reporting on the situation. And I hope to try to improve their situation. That's what this series is about.
Matt, we love that. I was once an assistant pro at a golf course, so I completely understand.
Part of the problem is an awareness issue because people are so selfless and humble and quietly, like they don't get the credit that they deserve. So that in part is the problem.
100%. But there is one guy who may have not been very humble. And I want to ask you about our boy, Michael Block. Just give me your basic thoughts, because I've heard it all.
Now we're going to get clipped and get canceled.
Oh man. No. I come on. I love Michael Block. He's played Goat Hill Park, where I play, a little municipal here in Oceanside, California. I know some people who know. I mean, oh my God, I love everything about Michael Block. I love the fact that, he had a magic carpet ride through the PGA Championship. I love that he got to do what he did and say what he said. Like, come on, like I can't help. I mean, if you don't like that story, I don't know what to tell you. I just feel like, give the guy, again, how many times have we said something stupid with microphones being shoved in our face and again, I probably did it today, but it's like, after microphone, no sleep, trying to see, you got an exemption, here's a business deal. Like the guy overnight became one of the most famous and refreshing stories in this tumultuous time in the game of golf. He gave us something that actually was worth rooting for. And that was a gift. And I don't have any issues with Michael Block. I hope he's making a ton of money. I hope he got please. I'm a huge Michael Block fan.
All right, that's perfect. We'll clip that, and then we'll be right back in the good graces of people.
He's probably right. If he hit it 80 to 90 years further and doing what he does around the green, probably would be one of the best players in the world. Like, I mean, he'd be better
for sure. Absolutely.
Right? 80 or 90 yards.
Absolutely.
You'd be better. And he's number 500 now or whatever. So let's say he's top 100.
Either way, he's a damn good golfer. We'll give him that.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you making the time. Hopefully we could have you on again soon. I
appreciate you guys. Thanks for the opportunity. Good conversation. If you're ever in San Diego, come on down to Goat Hill Park and we'll tee it up. We'll have a couple fire pit pilsners, sit around the fire pit. We'll settle our debts and we'll talk about our games, which is actually worth time, effort, and energy while they're sorting out the game.
Thanks so much to Matt for coming on. Now it's time to get back to what's happening this Thursday as the golfing world heads to LA Country Club for the 123rd running of the US Open. We'll get into all the storylines, but before we do, let's start with Reed Martin, who's familiar with the course, to kick us off.
Every year, it starts the year, sports kind of restart, and there's the Masters. For me, there's the Masters, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont, and then the US Open. It's kind of the succession of all the events. And those are probably my favorite events of the year, my 5 favorite events of the year. And how better to have a US Open at LA Country Club? I mean, talk about history. LA Country Club has made it known, Tiger's years, all the LA Country Club finishes. And it's a golf course that it's going to play hard. You know, they have bent grass greens and a lot of Bermuda fairways. So let's just say all the greens were flat to begin with, which they're not going to be. They're flat to begin with. It's hard to get a lot of spin coming out of that Bermuda grass. So those firm bent grass greens are going to tend to release a lot more. Add these greens onto that. These greens are some of the firmest, fastest sloping greens you'll see all year. It's going to be hard to get it close. Hitting fairways are going to be crucial this week. I'm talking, it's by 7,400 yards or so, 5 par 3s. These par 3s can range anywhere from 290 yards to 120 yards is what I'm seeing. So, we're going to get some guys hitting, you get 290 into the wind. Some of these guys going to be hitting driver.
How many guys are going to be pissed off about these super long par 3s? So we're going to be hearing about that all week.
Here's the way I think about it. Coming into the US Open, that they're going to set it up tougher than any event you're going to see all year. And just because they say it's a par 3 doesn't mean you can't hit 5-wood to the front edge every day and just try to get up and down for 3 and make you get up and down for 3 twice and make 2 4s. I guarantee you are at least average in the field. You know what I mean? And so you got to understand it's a US Open. And so that's where my next point was going. Guys who can control their ball and who know how to manage the game. I think having a caddy who has been in these type of conditions a lot is going to be beneficial. You're going to see a lot of big names up there this week. This is a golf course. It's going to present itself to big ball hitters, high ball hitters that can bring it in a little softer. But also we're hitting fairways. So we're talking about someone like Koepka, if he's hitting it well or was hitting it well or whatever, he'd be one, but a high ball hitter, someone who brings it in like a Xander Schauffele, hits it really high. Xander hits it higher than a lot of the guys and has a lot of control of his ball flight. Grew up playing in San Diego, kind of the same conditions. I like Xander a lot this week. He's always there in the majors. Can he close one out? We'll see. But I would love to see it. Even better dude. Him and his caddy, Austin Kaiser, who we've actually had on in the past. But yeah, U.S. Open week. Couldn't be more grateful. One of my favorite weeks of the year. It's our U.S. Open week at our club, too, with our member guests. So it's kind of a big week for me in general.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to sum it up. I mean, this is like storylines galore at this U.S. Open. Let's start with the biggest name of the bunch, though, Scottie Scheffler. He has an absurd top 12 finish, 15 weeks in a row. Is he going to keep the streak going?
For sure, man. It's a big week. It's Scottie Scheffler time.
When we get to the bets, you're going to see I take a stand.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he's the best ball striker on tour right now. I mean, flat out, no question. He'd probably won like 3 times already if he could putt, average. So we're going to see Scottie this week. This is going to be, I think the big question is, are we going to be under par or are we going to be over par this week? I've seen, the very typical U.S. Open videos popping up of dropping balls in the rough and it's disappearing everywhere you look. Just a couple feet off the fairway or right around the green. You're dropping balls on the green and they're rolling off just away from pins. It's shaping up to look like a hard tournament. I don't know how many of these guys have even played LACC, so they got their homework cut out for them. But Scottie and his caddy have been synced up for a while now, so I fully expect him to be there come Sunday.
The storyline I'm looking at is someone that has played the course, and that's the home boy, Max Homa, LA guy. He's got 6 PGA Tour wins, but he hasn't had a lot of success in majors. And everyone says he's the next guy. He's the next guy. He's the one that's going to get a major soon. We just saw a Canadian win in Canada. Can we see Max Homa win in LA? That would be an amazing storyline. But, you know, after listening to kind of what Reed was saying, I don't know if he has what it takes. Is he the guy that can play the smart game to get the score that he needs to get, or is he going to get himself into some trouble and not be able to finish? He'll be a guy I'm watching right off the hop on Thursday.
Being aggressive is, you got to do it in the timely key manners at this point in this kind of tournament.
Pick and choose.
Pick and choose. Smart aggressive, I'll call it. I mean, you're going at a par 5 and it's a back left pin. Hitting it in the front right rough might be okay at that point because you have 50, 60 feet of green to work with or whatever it might be. Obviously, that's situational. But, yeah, smart golf is going to pay dividends.
Do you guys see a LIV guy contending this week? Been obviously a theme. Seeing
initials of BK.
I think they'll be in the mix.
BK, have it your way. You rule.
Oh, that commercial's driven me nuts. It's just been on repeat.
What about a guy like Cam Smith, right? Like top of the golf world at the end of last year, then leaves to go to LIV. But when he's come over to play in the majors, hasn't done too much. Is he a guy maybe we now see? There's a little bit of pressure off. These guys are a little bit more well-received. They've been in the media rooms a little bit more with the PGA Tour now. Is some of that off of his shoulders and he can just play golf? Is this the tournament where he starts to shine again? I think that's maybe a LIV guy that we look at. I know Koepka's up there. DJ, we know he plays well. Mickelson going for the Grand Slam. I don't know about that one, but it'll be interesting. There definitely will be a handful of LIV guys in or around the leaderboard come Sunday.
Doesn't seem like there was too much pressure on the LIV guys earlier, or like bad press that it was affecting them. But if there was, it's all gone now. And you got to think these guys are super comfortable. They don't feel like everyone hates them anymore after all this merger talk. So I think the LIV guys could be in for their 3rd straight major with big-time contenders.
Cam Smith gives the almost exact opposite impression that Brooks does. So, you know, the talk was like, oh, man, these LIV guys, they've been playing, like, non-intense golf for a year. And when they come to a major championship, are they going to be just, like, not even mentally prepared? Cam Smith gives a little bit of that. Like, he's just kind of aloof out there. And obviously Brooks Koepka's dialed in and he doesn't, like, this is what he's bred for. Cam Smith gives a little bit of, man, I got my money and I'm just going to hang out here and play some golf. And it doesn't seem to have worked for him too great in regards to winning. But, you know, to each their own.
I'm saying it right now. It's going to be a guy who is a steep attacker of the golf ball and hits it high.
You heard it here first, y'all. Someone that does that, I think, pretty well, hits it miles high. Obviously, we've talked about him a lot. Rory McIlroy. He's not playing necessarily bad. He's not being the Rory of past. Could this be the event we see him kind of be like, hey, remember me, guys? I'm Rory McIlroy. I'm pretty freaking good at this game called golf. Or does he kind of just, make a top 20 or backdoor top 10 classic Rory again this week?
I don't know. I could see him just showing up when no one's expecting it.
I saw he was there today right away. Didn't take any time off from the Canadian Open, so he's out there figuring out the course. He does hit the ball a mile in the sky, so he lines up with what Reed's saying. But I'm telling you, man, something just seemed off on Sunday with him. I thought he was just going to have this amazing charge of the Canadian Open, and he didn't have that. So I'm worried that he's coming in with some bad vibes, and now he's mixed with all the LIV guys together. There's more media. He's got to talk about that again. So I'm just worried that he gets off to his traditional bad start on Thursday and can't get it back on the rails.
I got a big conspiracy theory.
Let's hear it.
Rory McIlroy butchered Sunday at the RBC Canadian Open, so he doesn't have to go back there again.
That I believe.
Sorry. Like, no, this is...
Oh, jeez.
This is very conspiracy theory-esque. And B, so he could just hop on a plane and get to the U.S. Open because he's at the point in his career where that's all he cares about. Maybe that's way out there. It seems pretty drastic. And maybe he felt bad. He was like, I kind of want a Canadian to win. I'll just slither down the leaderboard here. He seems determined to play golf. He's kind of sick and tired of everything else. and getting out there on the course, denying his press conferences this week. Maybe he's just like, I just need to get back to playing golf and being Rory McIlroy, the golfer, and not the politician. So maybe I see a strong showing from him either this week or at the Open this summer.
I'm going to say right now, this is an event where you got a course and a setup where you're going to see someone who either A, not a big name, or B, out of nowhere that will contend and be in the top 10 or 15 on the weekend.
You're calling for this week's Michael Block?
I'm calling for a Bo Hostler style.
So we had Sam Bennett at the Masters. We had Michael Block at the PGA. You're calling a third out of nowhere guy? Maybe an amateur?
It's just these guys aren't going to have to go that low. If they can make 16 pars, 1 birdie, and 1 bogey every day and be in the hunt, is my guess.
What are the greens like there, Reed? Is this going to be tricky fast, like almost ridiculous?
They're pitched, they're slopey, and they're bent, so they can get them fast and firm.
Are we going to see balls rolling off the green? Maybe even a D-green putt?
I wouldn't put it past it.
Those are my favorite kind of putts.
Oh, I love it. You do it a lot, Zach? Me too.
Oh, all the time.
Koepka this week has the opportunity to become one of 3 golfers to have won the PGA and US Open 3 times over. So that's a huge storyline. I mean, Koepka is getting dangerously close to like top 10, top 5 golfers of all time. He's in his prime still. There's no doubting that. He could win a couple more majors and all of a sudden be way up there. He has a chance to win his 6th major before Phil Mickelson ever won his first major in his career.
And Brooks kind of had a long road in a way. Like, Brooks wasn't a star right out of the gate. He grinded his way up to the PGA Tour, which is nuts to hear that he's going to have it before Phil.
Yeah, he wasn't a Jordan Spieth, a Justin Thomas type guy. He didn't come out here guns a-blazing. He took forever and then just started winning the second he got out here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, though, on where he'll be considered. I think if he wins either the Open Championship or the Masters especially, then I think that'll give a huge boost just to not have the 2 majors.
You got to diversify that portfolio, right?
Yeah, it's not good enough yet. One other group of contingents, which we talked about earlier in the show, how good the Canadians have been recently. Stark, is there a chance a Canadian could end up winning a major?
I heard this interesting theory that let's say Corey Connors goes on and wins the U.S. Open this weekend. Is it a bigger story than Nick Taylor winning the 100%. Canadian Open last week?
Not even close, man. It's the U.S. Open.
I'm with Reed. It's not close.
I agree. Winning the major would be the biggest thing. And what a shine that would be like, hey, Nick Taylor, great job last week, but I'm just going to go out here and win a major.
That's such a spoiler, man. that suck.
Yeah, it'd be great. If it's anyone, it's going to be Corey Connors. If he can be striping the ball like he was on Thursday and Friday and figure it out. And
he can't putt, man.
Which is, though, if he could putt.
I know. That's why I asked about the greens.
If he could putt, though, he could win. And you never know.
He's just got to have a hot week, yeah.
That's right. So, I mean, if there's anyone, it's going to be him. I don't think, Hughes, Hadwin, Taylor's going to be his head's going to be in a different space. So if it's anyone, I think it's Connors, but I'm not holding my breath.
All right. Let's get to some picks, though. I think it's time. Nolan, you had a crazy week betting last week, and you had an amazing week, and you missed the winner.
Dude, yeah, I know. That was unfortunate. Had Fleetwood up there battling out. Dude, I honestly did not even care. I was just drinking the maple syrup like I said last week. I was loving that Taylor was up there.
No way you were rooting for Taylor at the end. No way.
I didn't bet enough money. Let's be honest.
You're not betting enough if you wanted Taylor to win.
Yeah.
You should have been rooting hard.
50 cents.
Come on. It was more than that. I put $10 on Tommy Fleetwood.
Well, how are you rooting for Taylor?
That's what I'm saying, Zach. I'm a Montreal fan, right? Come on.
I got a Damian Lillard bobblehead in my room in support of you, so the least you could do is root for Nick Taylor. What do you got this week, Nolan?
Getting a little ambitious this week. It's the U.S. Open. It's so fun. You got to put something out there. I think I have a theme with my picks. I'm going heavy on the ball strikers, like we've all been kind of saying. I like a guy who can tee to green, stay out of the rough, make some 2 putts, and move on to the next hole. Pars are our friends this week. So leading off, a guy I've been loving all year. I think we'd all enjoyed his rise this comeback season. Fowler. I'm going T20 on Ricky Fowler, plus 200. So love to see him be successful this week. I'm going to go Tyrrell Hatton, coming off a great week at the Canadian Open, ball striker, T20 plus 150. I am going to dip into the LIV pool, and I'm going to pull out one Brooks Koepka. Can't deny this guy anymore at a PGA Championship and at a US Open. He's going to come. He's going to game. I'm going to go T10 plus 160 to still get some of that plus money on him. I will take a little hometown boy fun. I mean, I loved the Canadian Open ending, and what kind of storyline would be if Max Homa's up there at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday. So I'm going to go Homa T10 plus 300. I feel like that's a really great value. I think he really wants to prove himself finally. So I look to see him play well this week. And I'm going to go with 2 winners this week because I couldn't get a winner last week. The odds are ridiculous, but I'm gotta go Scottie Scheffler. He hasn't won a major yet this year. He's been having an incredible year. You can get him at plus 600 to be victorious this week. My other kind of just dartboard pick that, like, you know, it just felt right. It felt like maybe this could happen for him. He's a you know, great player. He's a proven player and hasn't notched that major championship yet. I'm going Tony Finau plus 3,000. Sprinkle a little bit on that, and we'll see how we can do this week.
All right, Stark. Well, what do you got?
I'm going all players that didn't play this weekend at the Canadian Open. And I'm going to start with Victor Hovland coming off his win, top 10 plus 200. I think he's feeling it now. If he can get going here and make this his summer, let's say over the next couple months, and put his name in the top 10 or 5 players in the world. So looking for him to have a good weekend. Matsuyama, I got him top 10.
Love that.
Plus 400. Think he's going to have a good week, and he's ready to start showing that he's a top player as well. I got Xander Schauffele. Right after my boy Reed was talking about him, I got him at top 20 at plus 110. Might look to parlay that with some other stuff too to boost up those odds. And then I got a LIV player in the mix too. I'm not afraid to bet on them. I got Captain America at the US Open, Patrick Reed, top 20 plus 260. Let's see if he can play good and show everyone that he's out there. He's probably hearing about all these other LIV guys playing. Can he jump up a leaderboard? Be great. And then my outright winner, which is crazy at these odds, but it's the summer of Scheffler and Rahm. We got Rahm already won his major this year. It's Scottie Scheffler's turn too. I agree with Nolan. He's due to he's going to be in the mix. He's going to be in the mix. He's going to be in that leaderboard box on Sunday morning. So why not sprinkle on him to win? Plus 600 isn't crazy. And then my out of the you know, sometimes as a gambler, you see something or you hear something in passing, and it sticks with you, and then you say to yourself, if I don't bet this, I'm going to think back on this and be like, why didn't you just bet on that, you dumbass? So today I had the TV on live from the US Open, and they start talking about that in 2018 is the year that they changed the playoff format at the US Open. Used to be the full 18 holes the next day, and now it's a 2-hole aggregate. 2 holes they will play, hole number 1 and hole number 18 at this course. So why not? This tournament's going to end in a playoff plus 350 is my last bet.
Playoff bet's an exhilarating bet.
That's a fun one.
Mine's pretty similar to that, but I guess you probably don't win it if it goes to a playoff. Winner by 1 stroke plus 200.
Oh,
the last 2 years it's happened. I think the course is going to play pretty close to par. So I think we might get a couple guys up there. I also got Scottie Scheffler. I'll just take the free money. I'm not going to take him to win. Top 10 minus 110, which is insane that it's minus odds on the top 10. But hey, we've seen minus odds on Tiger to win a major. So Scheffler top 10, it's the least we could do. This is also free money that you guys just haven't been following on. Sahith top 30 plus 170. I'm just giving you free money bets every week with Sahith. He has not failed me once. Get on board, fellas.
what was he at the Canadian Open?
Zach didn't bet him at the Canadian Open.
He came 38, top 40.
Top 40, there you
Our
go.
boy Kevin hit that. You can't miss with Sahith. We also got a couple long shot winners because I'm not on board with taking a top guy. We'll go with Ricky Fowler plus 4,500 because he's been playing some very good golf. And as we've mentioned before, Jason Day had a breakthrough win. Justin Rose had a breakthrough win. It's all setting up for Ricky Fowler. And then the last one, Bryson plus 4,000. It's not as good odds as we got at the PGA Championship, but I mean, he did it when he won the U.S. Open last time. Course was playing around par, and Bryson was the only one to be able to tear it up. And with his distance, you never know. So I'll take plus 4,000 on a past U.S. Open winner. All right, guys, another great week we just wrapped up. We're going to close it out with a few fan questions, followed by our bogeyed plays of the week. Let's kick it off with a question by Cody Kirk, who asks, has Tommy Fleetwood become the new Tony Finau?
Funny that, I picked Tommy to win last week. I picked Tony to win this week. And yeah, that's a perfect analogy. He is one of the best players, definitely one of the best players on tour currently without a PGA Tour victory. At the Canadian Open, I was loving, either way, we were going to have a really cool ending. If Fleetwood was going to get his first victory or Taylor was going to do it for Team Canada. So, he's up there. Where do you guys kind of rank him amongst the best, even like all time without a PGA Tour victory?
Yeah, he's up there for me. He's the new Tony Finau. He can't seem to get the win. He was so close. If it wasn't Nick Taylor, I would have been pulling for Tommy Fleetwood. Seems like a great guy. Every interview he's done, he seems very respectful, loves the game, plays it the right way. Just can't seem to close, and that might stick with him for a while now.
Some guys it's hard to win, man. It's hard to win. That's plain and simple. It's absolutely hard to win. And some guys just get the shit end of the sticks time after time.
Next question from Sam. He asked, where does Nick Taylor's putt rank in your recent most exciting golf moments? For me, it's probably right up there. Probably number one just because of how far it is. What about you guys?
I got Tiger winning the Masters above it. But honestly, once you get past that, it was storybook ending. Who's the director in Canada that's going to start putting a movie together about this victory? The big drought, the long putt, the adversity, the back-to-back birdies to get to the playoff. The long playoff. It's pretty cool.
Jim Cameron, Avatar 2, and then Nick Taylor putt.
It's right up there too. We're talking moments. So like a one play, one shot on the golf course to win it. Most recent I can think of. It's way up there. So what a moment for golf, not just for Canadians.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to match that, whatever it is, man. You can remember this for the next 5 years. It'll be hard to match that.
Yeah.
Even bigger than Michael Block's hole-in-one at the PGA Championship.
No, never mind. That's my number one. My number one is him saying he might shoot a 58. So next question before we get a counterpoint to that incredible 58 comment by Michael Block. Mike Wichter, he asked, the new LIV PGA Tour merger, will there still be a FedEx Cup standings? And what will it mean for the players who've traditionally grinded to maintain their cards?
Oh, goodness, man. I guess we should have asked Matt this because I think we're all still who knows? Who freaking knows?
I think that's the best answer.
To me, I think the PGA Tour and LIV are still separate. So, yes, there should be still a FedEx Cup standings playoff shindig going on the PGA Tour. But until we get some more clarity, I think we're all just kind of pissing in the dark here.
Matt kind of touched on it a bit too, but if they're going to make some sort of team event, if they're going to segment the PGA Tour and say it's January to July or August, and then the team events start, then we got Tiger's indoor thing, and it kind of becomes this season upon season and different integrations of professional golf. The FedEx Cup standings almost make it too confusing. I can't be watching the TV and say, well, this guy's leading the tournament. He's getting this amount of FedEx points, which will put him in this FedEx standings. And also he's getting points for his team in the team event, which are this or theirs. That's too much. So maybe that's the time for the FedEx Cup Championship playoffs to go to the side, have the big boy tournaments, have them win, and get a little team event going at the end.
All right, we're getting to some Joe Rogan level podcast length here. Before we close it out, we are going to give you guys our bogey of the week. I'll start with me because maybe you guys are wondering, did they miss Adam Hadwin, get completely rocked? No, we're all on it. That's my bogey play of the week. Adam Hadwin just getting completely leveled by a security guard. So does the security guard deserve a raise, or should he be fired, or should maybe take up a career in the NFL?
Definitely, dude. I heard like Nick Saban's giving him a call. Great form tackle there, head down, shoulders into the waist there, not going for the head. It was great. There's all sorts of great things. I think Jessica Hadwin, I believe, was all over Twitter. His wife telling us all he was okay. So many great views of that moment. Just like elevated this tournament even more. The laughs we got to have after the fact, super fun to see.
Yeah, he could have been hurt really bad. Like that would have been the worst case scenario. So at least he bounced right back up.
Nolan, what do you got for your bogey of the week?
Yeah, mine's pretty obvious. So I had Fleetwood winning, and like I said, I was full on pulling for Nick Taylor. Now, if I was smart, I would have cashed in my bet when they went into a playoff. I could have got some money. I could have had a win-win situation there, and cashed out my Fleetwood pick because they were offering it. So that's my bogey of the week. Just a egg in the face of Nolan.
Yeah, I think last week I brought up almost every Canadian name except for Nick Taylor.
Yeah.
So
I tweeted out a little clip of our podcast last week because I did, question, could Nick Taylor be, a guy who pops up? So it was on there as a group, as a whole, as Bunkertown. We did mention his name, but yeah, no, we didn't talk about him that much.
Yeah, I wasn't on the show last week, but I heard Reed just literally list off every Canadian except Nick Taylor, the one who's went to school in his state.
Yeah, so my bogey of the week is I was sitting here talking about Adam Svensson last week, and Nick Taylor goes and wins in dramatic fashion. A guy who played college golf in Seattle where I grew up. Yeah, messed that one up. Love you, Nick. Spent some time with you on the PGA Tour when I was caddying. Good dude. Deserves it. Couldn't be more happy.
Yeah, my bogey of the week, it's a personal one for me. Kind of mentioned before, I'm like a 9 handicap. Always striving to be perfect and shoot even par, right? Aren't we all trying to do that? Out Sunday morning, played the front 9 in even par 35 with 2 bogeys and 2 birdies. Then I bogeyed the 10th hole, parred the 11th hole, and at that moment, standing on the 12th tee, my friend asked me, "Hey, would you shoot on the front?" And instead of saying, "Don't worry about it," I said I shot even par. And from that moment on, I went +7 on the back 9. Finished with a 78. Great. That's a good score, but not what I was looking to do after a great front 9. So it's on me. I bogeyed myself. Brutal. Keep my mouth quiet next time and just play the shots.
I was certain we were going to get a Doug story. But
no, haven't seen Doug in a bit.
Well, on this week's show, we talked about Nick Taylor's historic week at the Canadian Open. We then had Matt Ginella on the pod. Perfect timing to talk about the consequences of one of, if not the biggest merger in professional sports history. We also previewed the US Open, where it's storylines galore at the LA Country Club. And lastly, we closed things out with some fan questions and our bogey plays of the week. As always, thank you guys for listening. I want to thank Ian, Reed, Nolan. Special thanks to Matt Ginella, and thanks to our guy Kevin working hard behind the scenes to get and keep us sounding our best. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bunker Township, and let's have ourselves a week.
That's tough. It's just, that is brutal. Bunker would be an advantage.